Hello everyone, my name is Raymond and I am back with the next installment of my Project Feline series. A series about making my own game in my own method from start to finish. If you haven't watched the previous video, be sure to go ahead and give it a watch to see how this project began. I want to preface this video by thanking each and every one of you that watched and enjoyed and commented on the last video. I got a lot of messages and feedback from the game, and it just really makes me happy knowing that some of you took the time to give me some feedback on it, and I really appreciate it. So this week, I want to talk about the next phase of this project, namely being the creation of a mood board and storyboard, which I've been working on. So the reason I began crafting a storyboard and mood board was to help me get better immersed and inspired in the project. I was watching a video lately that I'll link down below about the importance of enjoying your process, because if you don't enjoy your process, then you just won't enjoy your process, and I couldn't imagine why you wouldn't want to enjoy it. Games take a long time to make, and I want to have as much fun in that time as I can. I want to be happy and enjoy myself while I'm producing it. I would hate to spend 2 years on a game and dread the entire thing. I don't know how I'd be able to continue. So one of the most important things from the start was to get me super pumped up for this game, so I would have the drive to see it through to the end. And one of the things that helps me with that is just getting immersed in the story and the world of whatever it is I'm building. From my own artistic background, I really love a game with good aesthetics and a good feeling. Not just with the gameplay necessarily, but a game where you feel like you've escaped from life and you're in this new world or a different world that's different from what you're used to, and just the fantasy of that I really like. So I wanted to make sure with this project that I included some of that, just to give me that context for the world and get my head in that space of just wanting to imagine and to dream in the world of this game. So the thing I started with might be a bit different to what other people do. One thing that really helps me get invested into a game is just hearing the sounds I would want to hear. So I went ahead and made a playlist of songs that got me in that mindset and got me in the mood for creating this game and got me in the atmosphere and got me immersed in imagining what the game would be like and how it would look and how it would feel to play and what the environment would feel like to play in. One of the reasons I loved music growing up was that it helped me escape and it gave me something to imagine. So I wanted to compile together some songs that I knew of that would help me foster a dream or an imaginative process for this game. I've actually assorted these tracks into a playlist which you can go listen to on my Spotify. After making this playlist, I had a really good idea in my head. I had a vision for what I wanted it to look and feel like. And using those songs, I put together a mood board. Mood boards are a common technique used in the early pre-production phases just to help set the tone visually of the game. I have a strong liking to them as well because there's a lot of cool images I see from time to time, and it gives me the same kind of inspiration as listening to a good song. So I made sure to put together an assortment of images that helped foster the aesthetic look I had envisioned for the game. I didn't necessarily create each image, of course. These are just images from games I like playing and images I like looking at and screenshots I thought were really cool. And it's just to give me a reference for the kind of thing I would want to make as well. So when I look at these images together, it gives me a certain mood, and I use it as like a North Star to determine what feeling I want to create with my own skills and my own art and my own gameplay. For example, in a couple of these images, I've taken a mix of Mirror's Edge and Halo and a couple other paintings that I've liked. One of the things I love about Mirror's Edge is just the vibrant look of the city you get to explore and just the feeling of like sort of being in the future in a way. I always found it really cool, and some of the music I listen to also gives me that mood. So I wanted to make sure I had that somewhere to look at, so that every so often if I ever lose my way in the project, I'll look at this board and know what inspired it, and know what could inspire me to keep going. After establishing the mood board, I went ahead and drafted a really rough storyboard to help me get sort of an underlying premise or goal for the game. In the games I play, I always like having an underlying premise or goal. just like a reason to progress through the game, and I'm sure that the players that end up playing this game would want the same kind of thing. So I wanted to make sure that the project had at least some kind of backstory or some kind of objective that the player had to do, rather than just jumping around and shooting stuff. I didn't want to focus too much on the narrative, of course, as some of my previous games have focused too much on the narrative at the expense of the gameplay. To do this though, I needed a good example of a simple story but a well-delivered one. And one of the things that came to mind was the story for John Wick, starring Keanu Reeves. I hadn't previously watched this movie, but upon talking to people about my project, I was suggested to watch this movie. The premise is quite simple. An ex-assassin mourns the death of his beloved wife, receives a puppy as a last gift so he wouldn't have to mourn alone. He spends the day with his dog, driving around in his favorite car, and then later, his house is broken into, his car stolen, and his dog murdered. He then copes with this with the only way he knows how, seeking vengeance and eliminating the ones that stole his car and killed his dog.
It's not what you did, son, that angers me so. It's who you did it to.
Who? The fucking nobody?
That fucking nobody. Is John Wick.
A very simple plot, but it is delivered in such a good way. All of you have probably seen a movie where the plot might have been really complicated, but it was so poorly delivered to the point where you didn't really care. The thing that really drives this movie is more the delivery of this plot rather than the complication of the plot. So one of the things I wanted to experiment with this project was to develop a simple premise, but have it delivered well enough for people to care about it and to push forward with the story. So in my storyboard here, the main character receives a gift from her sister, a suit of armor, with augmented reflexes and abilities. They try out the suit together on the rooftop, giving a chance for the player to practice the mechanics. Then all of a sudden, choppers appear, and your sister gets taken away. Your primary objective is to now save your sister using the suit you've been given, and figuring out why she was taken. I know this is not the full story, it's only just the introduction, and it may not be the best in the world of course, but I think it's enough just to get me started with something. I'm looking forward to see how it can develop and what changes I'll end up making along the way. If you've got any ideas on how this game should begin and where the story should go, feel free to leave a comment. One thing I did like about this opening, however, was that it created a sense of mystery. This came from a talk I watched by J.J. Abrams about the importance of mystery in storytelling. In J.J. Abrams' work, he often builds to what he refers to as a mystery box, where he treats stories as a mystery waiting to be discovered. The concept really intrigued me, and I started looking at other games that followed similar trends. The first Portal game, for example, is a beautiful example of this. The opening levels of Portal really establish the gameplay, but they leave just enough mystery in the plot. They do this by conforming to a pattern for the most part of the opening of the game, until suddenly there's a change in the pattern. They do this in both obvious and not so obvious ways, most noticeably being the color scheme of each level. At the beginning they're mostly white and blues, but then later you start to see shades of orange littered around the level. I myself haven't tried telling stories this way, so I'm really interested to see what I can do with that technique in mind. I might produce some more storyboards as well, covering the middle and the ending of the game. I have some rough ideas about what would happen, but I feel like they may need a bit more thought. So, to summarize, I feel like creating a mood board and a storyboard has really helped facilitate my passion for this project. It's given me a world and an imaginative space to work in, and it's given me a lot of hope and ambition for what I am able to achieve. The game may not deliver that heavily on story in later iterations, but I think having those ideas there, without shutting them down completely, creates hope. And I think hope is a really important part of your process. I believe you should always push your boundaries when developing. I don't see much point in developing something that you already know you can make, because then you may not learn as much. I mean, sure, you may learn something, but I feel like you'll learn a lot more trying to push your own boundaries and to try new things. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. In my next video, I want to share some ideas I've had about gameplay. So be sure to stick around. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel to follow this journey. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.